Let me set my public thing real quick before I get to talking about this signing real quick. One second, y'all. Let me get this situated. I always have to do this because it won't let me see comments if I don't. All right, I got this set live. Okay, as I'm sure y'all been seeing for the last 2 hours, the Falcons agreed to the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith as the new head coach. But before I even go into that topic, let me get this out the way real quick. I hope that when we get this thing together, whether it's a rebuild, whether it's running with this Matt Ryan, Julio Jones crew, once again, that I hope we get to a point where we do start winning so y'all can be happy. Because at this point, this is the most ungrateful fan base in the world. I get it. We were 4-12 last year. We've had a lot. We're trying to get back to the playoffs from the first time in 3 seasons. But at the end of the day, if you thought that we were going to just be able to just go get I wanted Joe Brady too. I'm not going to lie. But I also felt like Arthur Smith was going to be one of our choices outside of Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. One, he's still in the playoffs, so I know he's going to get a head coach job somewhere, somehow. But it also goes into what did the new GM want? Because I'm just about certain Terry Fotenot, the New Orleans Saints guy, is going to be our GM after the Saints lose out. So I'm sure that's going to come out. They're not going to be able to announce it officially until the playoffs are over for New Orleans. He is the favorite, but they can't really get it out of the way. But at the end of the day, stop bashing the move before it even gets started. Because at the end of the day, we all wanted an offensive mind head coach. We all said we were done with defensive mind coaches from the Mike Smith down to Dan Quinn. So now we got an offensive mind head coach. Now it's oh my God, we're gonna just run. Derrick Henry this, Derrick Henry that. We know we don't have Derrick Henry. Let's just put it like that. We know we don't have a Derrick Henry on this team. But as the reality of this situation is, the Falcons had one of the worst rushing attacks over the last couple of years under Dirk Cutter. But just wanted to get that out of the way. I want to get into the top before I get started. Why not Kansas City's offensive coordinator? I don't really think he was ever a favorite for the job. I think it was always between Joe Brady and him. Jonathan Park said, is he worth it, though? We're going to find out, but I think he is going to be worth it. I also like the fact that, although I've heard a couple people say that he is one of those Shanahan disciples, so we could see us go back to that zone blocking scheme, which at the end of the day, we actually ran the ball when we were zone run offense. Tavares said, I hear Kansas City offense coordinator might stay if they win the Super Bowl. I will stay. I mean, you got that dangerous offense out there. I would be like Josh McDaniels in New England. I wouldn't leave too soon. I'll leave when the time is right. But just moving on to what I was talking about, I wanted to touch on some of the Titans stats last season, just to show. I know a lot of folks think we're going to become run, and that's definitely not the case. The Titans actually finished 4th in points per game, 2nd in offensive yardage. They were number 2 in turnovers allowed. On the flip side, they didn't throw the ball out. They had the 3rd least passing attempts in the league. They were 23rd in passing yards. They were number 8 in touchdown passes. And they were number 2 in the least interceptions thrown last season. But as far as rushing attempts, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and yards per carry, they were number 2 all across the board. Yes, a lot of it had to do with Derrick Henry, but that also speaks to the balance. It also speaks to the fact that Ryan Tannehill had an improved year. He improved in that Tennessee offense. That team nearly took the Chiefs out the postseason during their Super Bowl run, but they didn't have enough to sustain just to hang with that high-powered offense, which was understandable. I bring up those stats to say this. No, I do not expect us to be a top 5 to 10 rushing offense next season, nor do I expect us to be this out of the blue great rushing attack. But at the end of the day, over the last 2 seasons, maybe even 3, we have not ran the ball well. It's a combination of the offensive line can't block well, the scheme is terrible. Dirk Cutter is a running back's nightmare because just think, we brought Todd Gurley in for a 1 year, $5 million contract. And I'm getting some of my notes. I'm just going to cover some of the notes real quick I have put down. Todd Gurley ran for 670, 89 touchdowns for the season. Do you know that the last touchdown he ran for was the Denver win before the bye? That was early November. We played 7 more games after that. He didn't have a rushing touchdown after it. Also, he didn't have more than 10 carries. Why are you paying a guy $5 million if he's not going to get the ball more than 10 times in a football game? Although Gurley was not healthy, I get that. Gurley was running scared, I get that. But at the end of the day, if I'm paying a guy $5 million, you're going to get the ball. He was totally ineffective to our offense at a certain point. Also, the Falcons only ran for a team rushing yards over 100 for 6 games, and only twice we won the football game. You're not winning games like that. You got to have some type of balance in this league. On the flip side, Tennessee ran for 100 in 13 of their 17 games. The one game that they didn't run for 100 yards, the recent game was the Baltimore playoff game. Baltimore did an outstanding. Let's stop taking away the fact that Baltimore has an outstanding defense. That defense buckled down and shut down Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry killed them in the postseason last year and killed them earlier this season. They came in and did what they had to do to shut down Derrick Henry. They did what it took to win the football game. That's what happened to that. And that's true. They did keep trying to give the ball to Derrick Henry. They tried to get Derrick Henry going as much as they possibly could. But at the end of the day, you still have to take into consideration that was one of the rare times that offense was shut down rushing-wise. It's similar to a lot of the fans on draft night back last year, and I'm sure some of you on here remember my live from that time, where A.J. Terrell was drafted, and the first thing I was heard about was the first thing that I heard was this simply right here. A.J. Terrell got smoked by the LSU defense. Offense, I'm sorry. He got cooked by Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those guys. Can I also throw that Justin Jefferson is probably gonna be offensive rookie of the year? He should be, because he should play as Randy Moss yards. So when you go back to that game 2 years ago, do not bring that game up to me, because AJ Terrell ended up becoming our best secondary player towards the end of the season. Let me go to get the comments. Tavares says, what do you think the GM will do with the 4th pick? I'm still not against trading back for more picks. Too many needs unless to get a quarterback. I will touch on that later on. Remind me to come back to that point. Tavares also said Baltimore has a history of defense held Derrick Henry to 40 yards. Yes, they did. And that's where I go back to the point of that defense made the adjustments. The Ravens grew up in the playoffs. They grew up. I salute the Ravens, because for a team who was cooked in the postseason, I salute them for that. I salute them for making the adjustments to shut down Derrick Henry to get past that team, because it had been a thorn in their side for the last couple of times they played. But I'm getting into that topic to say this right here. I also I want to throw, before I even get into the Falcons, let me show you the difference in what I said about Tennessee and us. As far as us, the Falcons were 16th in points per game. We were 18th in offensive yards. We didn't give up a lot of turnovers. We were 9th in turnovers allowed. We were number 4 in passing attempts. Matt threw the ball 628 times last season. He has no business throwing the ball that much. We were number 5 in passing yards. We were 13th in touchdown passes. How do you How do you not even crack the top 10 and you're fourth and fifth in passing attempts and fifth in passing yards? That's unacceptable. We were number 9 in interceptions thrown. But here's the kicker for this team. We were 20th in rushing attempts, 27th in rushing yards, 22nd in rushing touchdowns, and we had a dismal 3.7 yards per attempt, the second worst rushing yardage attempts in the 2020 season. The worst team at that was Pittsburgh. Let's see. John said, what's going on, man? Tavares said, no running game. That's why he threw so much. That's the point I'm getting across. So if anything, bringing Arthur Smith in brings balance to a team who's just been pass heavy. I do not think that the Falcons are trying to change to this run the ball offense, run the ball offense, run the ball offense. We need to get back to running the ball, though. That's the goddamn truth. Falcons do need to run the ball. We're not going to win this game. We're not going to win games. I can even go back just to give you a point of how bad our rushing attack was. I don't want to really go into this, but I'm just going to break it down in how a lack of a rushing attack can cost you football games. So what I decided to do was I covered our 3 biggest leads that we blew. That's what took me so long to come on live, because I wanted to just research play by play just to go back and look and see just the minor details of where the game went wrong. For one, let me just throw this out here. The Cowboy game, the Dallas game, in that fourth quarter, we had a 9-point lead with 39-30. As you can remember, Gurley ran for a first down. You remember they challenged it? We ran the clock a little more. He comes back and loses 2 yards. Matt gets sacked. Then we get a completion and punt the ball. That's with 4 minutes left in the game. As you can remember, we all know about the onside kick. We all know about what happened. The Falcons never touched the ball again. That was 4 minutes left in the game, up 9. We never touched the ball again. One, because of a dumb special team mistake, but still, my point is, Dallas ran off 10 points in 4 minutes. We ran no time off the clock. We ran off 1 minute and 48 seconds. That's not going to close a game out when you have a lead. Second game, Chicago game. The Chicago game was a little more detailed. As y'all can remember, Young Wei Koo missed a field goal that could have put us up 19. The Falcons defense actually held. Remember, they were 4th and goal. We got to stop. Anthony Miller, who ended up catching the game-winning touchdown in that game, ended up getting a stop on 4th down and goal, which potentially could have closed the game out. What did the Falcons do in return? Brian Hill ran for 4 yards, a yard, an incompletion, and a punt. That's 1 minute and 22 seconds off the clock. Chicago still got plenty of time. Following drive, the defense gives up a touchdown. They cut it to 10. That's 6:22 left in the game. So we're at 26-16 Falcons. On the flip side, Gurley ran for 1 yard. We had 2 incompletions, punted the ball. That's 48 seconds. Still a lot of time left in the game. That's 4:21 left in the game. The Bears scored a touchdown, cut it to 6. Our next drive was 3 passes and a penalty. That drive ran for 11 seconds. They got the ball right back. Marshfield took the lead, 30-26. Matt threw a pick on that drive. That's how we lost that game. Bucs game. I ended up touching some into this game because the Buccaneers, we were up 17 at one point. But I got it to the point where, because they started making a run at the game in the third quarter, so I didn't really want to go all the way back to that. So I touched on it from the point we were up 24-21 late in that third, going into the fourth quarter. So that drive, we had a Brian Hill loss and 2 incomplete passes. The next drive, Tampa ties the game. Next Falcon drive, we drove to Tampa's 27. Matt missed Calvin Ring on the touchdown. I'm sure a lot of you remember that, because I remember a lot of you going off on Facebook about it. And then Tampa started sitting in the house and Matt got sacked. That's a field goal. That's 27-24 Falcons. Tampa scores the touchdown to Antonio Brown the next drive. The Falcons come back, loses yards, incompletion, sack, punt. We never get the ball back. Those are 3 games that we blew the lead in where we didn't even hold the ball that long. Just think, the Falcons lost 7 games, or maybe even 8. I want to say 7. 7 games by a touchdown or less. Which, if you look back at the season, the things go different. You might find yourself in the wild card race. Could find yourself in the playoffs right now, but it is what it is. It happened. But when I bring that point up to you, I bring this up saying this. If you're not going to win in this league without a running game, the 2016 Super Bowl team had a running game. A lot of folks I've seen on here throwing up that Mike Mularkey, he's might be a Mike Mularkey 2.0, Mike Mularkey 2.0. Let me just be real with you guys. When Mike Mularkey first got here, we had a rookie quarterback, an outstanding running back in Michael Turner. We had a Roddy White who was coming on. We ended up getting Gonzo 2 years later. We got Julio his 4th year. But the first 3 years under Mike Mularkey, we had a winning record every single year. We ran the ball well. We had a good offensive line. The 4th year, when we went and got Julio, he could not coach that group. He could not coach that group. So when you can't coach a group, the Falcons want you to be so just think about this. 2011, when he got fired, we were heading in 2 different directions. The Falcons wanted to be a high-powered, explosive, one quick play to Julio Jones touchdown team. Flip side, Mike Mularkey says, hey, we ran the ball so well all these years. Why are we changing it? He gets fired. That brings in Mr. Dirk Cutter the first time. Offense went downhill from that. Kyle Shanahan brought that offense back to what they needed to be, and then it fell apart again. What you're doing with an offensive-minded head coach is you're establishing an offense. And also, a lot of the people on here, they hired the GM without the head coach without the GM. Let's be real. Terry Fotenot's going to be our GM. You're not going to make that move without your GM being in play. And it also means 2 things, in my personal opinion, for the Falcons. One, I know that we're going to probably have Matt Ryan next. We're going to have Matt Ryan next season due to the contract. We know that. Same for Julio. You can get creative enough to see what you can squeeze out that group one more time before you consider fully blowing this thing up. Not saying you're not going to look into getting your guys for the future, but you also are going to get your guys in place for next season. You're going to start transitioning an offense. Because even if Matt is going in 2022, even if Julio's going in 2022, you got your offense in play so you know who fits your scheme and who doesn't fit your scheme. Just think about Dan Quinn's team, 2015. We had Mike Smith guys still on the team. A lot of those guys were gone at the 2015 because they no longer fit his team. So it depends on what Arthur Smith sees with this team and sees fit. He's coming into a good on paper, you're coming into a good situation on offense. You still got a Julio Jones if he can get healthy. Hopefully he gets healthy. You got Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. You got a decent receiver in Russell Gage, who came on at the end, who came on during Julio's absence. Hayden Hurst is not a bad tight end. Get you a rushing attack. And you can still squeeze one more guy. You can probably get another year out of Matt Ryan. You probably can. Before you consider moving on. Let me get to the comments, though. Tavash said, who's the best running back in the draft? What school? It is by far Najee Harris out of Alabama. I'm not sure we're going to be in range to get him unless we trade back late in the draft. But if he is there in a second, I will be shocked if the Falcons do try to spend a pick on him. If not, I will even spend a pick on Travis Etienne from Clemson. He's another good running back I wouldn't be opposed to having. But it also depends on what type of scheme. This is With knowing with his situation, if you might want to have a physical running back, then you definitely going to find yourself maybe looking at a Najee Harris in the second round, or a physical running back, maybe a Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. You can find you a physical back in this draft, so it's going to be intriguing to see where they go. Ace said that, man, I think it's a good move in my opinion. So do I. I think that the fans just need to give it a chance. Maurice Leggett said lack of creativity in the play calling. Everyone, let me just put this out here. Me and this guy right here had this conversation way back in the start of the year when Dan Quinn was on the team. When everyone was screaming, oh, it's Matt. Oh, it's this guy. Oh, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy. The first thing we discussed was coaching. Lack of scheme, lack of creativity. If I can tell you, which I'm sure all of you could at a certain point, if I can tell you what we're going to do when we step onto the field, that's a problem. I should not be able to say we're going to run up the middle for a gain of 1 yard and run up the middle for a gain of 1 yard. That's embarrassing. But Tavares said that 2016 team had a top 5 offense, but what about the defense? The Falcons never had a top 10 defense ever. Let me correct you, brother. The 2017 Falcons actually had a top 10 defense. However, that was the year Sark became our OC. So you just went to the Super Bowl with this high power offense, and Sark, coming from college, was not prepared to take this group on. It definitely didn't plan out well for him. And I just think that the Falcons had a very bad problem with that. Is we didn't sustain our success in 17. So the fact that we made the playoffs was a miracle. Tavares said, I say trade Julio if you don't take a cap hit. I know it's $22 billion, but you got to get something for him while he's still young. As much as I wouldn't be opposed to moving him, it's hard to move him right now. Cap hit wise, Matt and Julio are very much impossible to move. Even if you're going to go get a Justin Fields, Trey Lance, any of those guys, you still got to do another season with Matt and Julio. It is similar to 01 when Vic came in as being drafted under Chris Chandler and under Jamal Anderson. You started to see they were getting their guys for the future in that draft, and they weren't starting yet, but they were working their way into the scheme. So second year, Vic took off. Just throwing that as an example. Trey said, "Why yell? I'm not yelling, man. I'm just getting my point across." Mari said, "Can't trade Julio, but forcing to him is almost a guarantee to get him hurt." I totally agree with that. I completely agree with this point right here. It's not even so much the fact. The scary thing about this is Julio missed a lot of games down the stretch, and he nearly had as many receptions as Calvin Ridley did for the whole season. And that's a bad thing because try to get, if we get in a nail-biting situation, we try to get to Julio. You can't do that. Not in this league. He said offensive play calling must help the defense. Can't score too fast often. I agree with that as well. We are not in the situation where the Falcons are. To me, Matt's a good quarterback, but Matt's not 4 or 5 years ago, Matt. He's not gonna. You don't need to put that much strain on him at this stage in his career. So that's why another reason I'm very big on Arthur Smith, because to me, you're catering to the ending of the Ryan Julio era and getting the other guy in place. The reason that I definitely I wanted Joe Brady, but I wasn't too upset about not getting Joe Brady, is because to me, that scheme is I love that scheme. I really wouldn't mind him being our new coach, but that scheme is so advanced, and Matt's not that guy to run that scheme. He's good. Matt is still good enough to get you 30 touchdowns and a low amount of interceptions. He's still good enough to get you back to the postseason. I'm not saying that he's not, but I'm saying for that scheme, I just don't think that is You don't need to put. He ain't Aaron Rodgers at this stage in his career. You're not throwing that much on him. Let's see. Tavares said, "Do you draft a quarterback and wide receiver this year or next year? You definitely need a running back." Let me just see. Let me just. I'm gonna say this. I think the Falcons are in a situation where nothing is the wrong decision of drafting a quarterback or a receiver in the draft. You just don't need to take a receiver at number 4. As far as a quarterback, I think you do take a quarterback in this draft. I think I wouldn't mind adding a receiver in this draft as well, but I'm not going to spend a high pick on. But I would definitely not be against adding both positions. It depends on where in the draft. Maurice Leggett said time of possession is key. Absolutely. And the Falcons have lost time of possession in so many games, and we have not been able to sustain in a lot of drives late in those games. Okay, Trey Duke said should have traded Julio when I told you to. You did. You were definitely on that. You were definitely wanting to get Julio up out of here. I want to say the year before last. You were just saying not even so much from a negative perspective that you just felt like if he wasn't productive anymore, that contract would come back and haunt us. Let's see. Reggie Miller Jr. What's going on, Reggie? He said draft Trey Sermon. If he comes out, I'm not against him either. To me, I think the Falcons don't have to force their way to get a high draft pick running back. But I also think that you do need to get you a running back that you're going to start. Because I don't think Todd Gurley comes back next season. I like Edo Smith, bring him back another year. And let me just, and I hate to sound so rude, but I do not need to see Brian Hill on my roster next season. I'm sick of him. I am sick of Brian Hill. He has no vision. Brian Hill just finds a way just to skate on the roster. I'm tired of him. It's time for him to go. Trey Duke said, I disagree. Mac can still play at an MVP level. I never said that he couldn't still play at an MVP type level. I say that in his position, you don't need to put too much on him at this stage of his career. You don't want him taking too many hits. That's where my whole thing with Matt Ryan. Because if Fotenot and Smith are planning to keep Matt around for another year or two, you don't want your quarterback taking the hits that he took under Sark and definitely took under Dirk. Tavares said that Josh James will be perfect. I don't see him coming anywhere near Falcon facility. Reggie Miller Jr. said the Falcons offense needs to be balanced. I agree. And that's where I'm a big fan of the Arthur Smith move because I just want some balance on this team. To me, you don't have to be, I'm not going to say I don't want to be a high powered scoring group at this point. I just feel like you need to have a sustainable enough offense to where, like, prime example, in those games like that Buccaneer comeback, in that Dallas comeback, if you feel like that team is getting hot, if your defense can't do enough to sustain, let me go out here and crank out a 7-minute rushing drive and maybe come away with some points and pressure you to score in like a 2 to 3 minute span. That's all you really need. Maurice Leggett said a quarterback should be picked in the 4th round, especially with the situation with Matt. I'm not against that either. I'm definitely not against that either. I think that you do draft a quarterback in this draft. I just don't know if you go spend a super high draft pick on one. Because to me, I like this. Don't get me wrong. For the ones on here that is ready to move on from Matt Ryan, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to knock you for feeling that way. But I also don't feel like you, how I want to put this. We do need to get a quarterback, but we have so many needs that a quarterback is just one of those popular casual fan picks. No disrespect to anybody's opinion on Matt Ryan, because is his time going to be coming to an end soon? Yes, it is. And also, depending on what Arthur Smith can get out of Matt Ryan, we will also find out a lot about the Ryan era after next season. Because once you get a full season in with that group, he'll see, hey, this guy fits my team. I don't want him on my team. I don't want him on my team. So certain guys will make the roster in 21 just because he's filling out the roster. And after that, it could be a case where, hey, this guy don't fit me, cut. This guy don't fit me, traded. You get what I'm saying? So it's wait and see what happens with this group. Let's see. Trey do say Dick Bryce. Yeah, I'm sick of him. Tavad said Matt needs an offensive coordinator to think for him. Kyle Shanahan thought for him. Kyle Shanahan and Matt was the perfect combination together. That's a combination that, unfortunately, I know he still wishes he had in San Fran. Even though he went to the Super Bowl last year, they had a solid defense. You know, their fan base is trying to get Jimmy G up out of there as quick as possible. Because to go from blowing a Super Bowl lead last season to not even making the playoffs, even though you had injuries, just take a lot. Let's see. Reggie says Smith is perfect, but better fit with Justin Fields. I bet you do think that, bro. Let's see. Trey Duke said you got to have to pick a quarterback at 4 or trade back here. There's no player worth taking that high. I I'm not against taking Michael Parsons or Gregory Rousseau from Miami at that spot, though. But for me personally, if they not trying to go after a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson, I want to trade back. Because with the needs that we have on this team, I don't want to just sit here and stick to, hey, we got to hit on this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy. We have enough needs to the point where we need draft picks. Maurice Leggett said it takes 3 years for a system to fully develop, but being bad in the trenches will make it longer. That is true. Because for us with Kyle Shanahan, it took the second year. But in the process, we were building up an offensive line. Then we went to then that's another thing. If you're not making the moves, then guess what? You're not going to be able to go after, you're not going to be able to take that leap that you took. If you can't develop, see, that's the unique thing about certain teams. When you look at like the Rams team where Sean McVay was this ridiculous offensive mind, he had his scheme. It hit certain teams, they can strike gold quick. But again, like he just mentioned, it takes time to develop this system. So the fans got to stop taking it on a. I think the problem is you got some fans who are looking at 2021 as, are we going to go into the Super Bowl? Me personally, I'm going to be realistic as a fan. I'm not looking at 2021 as we could be in a Super Bowl next year. Because we're not, we just have so many things that needs to be addressed, and until I can see it firsthand, then it's hard for me to really say. Trey Duke said Gregory Rousseau is not a top 5 player, sir. I understand that. But I do think that if the Falcons are trying to look for a defensive playmaker, you need to try to get one in this draft. To be honest, this is not the most. I personally would go after Azeez Ojulari from Georgia. I'm not just saying as a fan. If you've watched UGA the last couple of years and watched Ojulari, he's an outstanding pass rusher. To me, I would develop a guy like him. And just not and just trade back and see what I can get. I'd rather get a lot or let a team like a San Fran go up to 4, let a team like a New England go up to 4, who wants a quarterback. Let one of those teams that are in the market for a quarterback, let them go up and get it. That's what I would do. But let me make sure I touched on all my questions. I have a whole bunch of notes over here. I want to say I did. I definitely touched on all my notes. It's great. Chris, what's going on, brother? He said, yes, sir, we did. I'm not against adding depth to that team. And Trace said, oh my God, man. You get tough on me. But again, those guys, you got to look at, you got to start looking. I want to trade. Me personally, I want to trade back. I want to trade back at this point in my opinion, because I think that we need to just really get a lot of depth on top of address certain positions. Let me go see. Chris Williams said, let's trade over Mario Tank Fields, and then we can get a ransom for the fourth. Because Jets and Dolphins take. You think the Dolphins taking a quarterback? That's intriguing, because I feel like the Dolphins are going to go after Devontae Smith or either Penny Sewell. That's who I think those is going to be either picked for those teams. So that would be a shocker. Trey Dew said Aziz is too small, but you can develop that guy. To me, he got the skill. You got the skill set, or if it depends on what defense we're going to run too. So I think that's going to also be another big play. Trey Duke said trading back sounds good to him. I personally am just on board with trading back because I just want to see what Fotenot is going to try to do, because this is the thing that got to be taken into consideration with the new GM, because I'm sure he hasn't been announced yet, but we're just about certain he's going to be the new GM. He's there with a older Drew Brees. Drew Brees he's been productive, but I say Drew Brees stopped being that over-the-top passing quarterback 3 years ago, the year they lost to the Rams on that crazy pass interference penalty. I think Drew Brees they started it in 2017 when they went and got Kamara and they paired him up with Mark Ingram. And you saw, okay, we're adding to this, we're getting a running game because Drew's getting older, to the point where Drew can go out here and play awful and Kamara can win a football game for you. Or he can go out here and play average and Michael Thomas can get you a good play here, a good play there. To me, I could see that situation happening in Atlanta, where you're going to get that running game intact. You're going to see what you still got out of Matt Ryan, but you're going to address your quarterback potentially for the future in this draft at some point. But I also feel that you're going to cater to what's your quarterback that is under contract. No disrespect to going at the quarterback, but you got to think about what's on your roster now. Matt's under contract next year. Julio's under contract next year. Ridley's under contract next year. You got to think about who you're going into 2021 with. He's not thinking about a Ty Gurley or a offensive line to have a Alex Mack or somebody like that. You're looking at what this group is going to do that is still there. You're going to see what you can get out of that group. That's what you're going to see. So I think the Falcons have a intriguing situation. I like Fotenot because the Saints actually have done a pretty good job drafting over the last 3 years. They hit well in 2017. They did decent at 2018. They've done enough to put themselves in position to compete. I don't know what happens after this season because they do have a cap. They do have a lot of cap problems coming after the 2020. And I also feel that with Drew Brees retiring, they're going to have a situation on their hands. But again, you got to start looking towards your future now. And waiting 2-3 years down the road is not going to help them. So I think that's going to be intriguing to see. And I also look forward to see what his mindset is when he gets here. I personally want the Saints to lose on Sunday so we can go ahead and get him, so we can just get to talking about him more, get where his head is at, because I'm looking forward just to seeing what this group is going to do post 2020. But that's what I want to get on here and talk about next week when if depending on if he is officially named GM, I do plan on coming back on air discussing more of this topic right here. Anybody ever want to chime in on the show, you definitely can chime in on the show. Hit me up, hit my messages, hit my YouTube. If you're not on my YouTube, subscribe to it. I will post a link later on my Facebook page for the ones that are on there. But again, if you're gonna hop on here, you gotta keep it clean. Keep it clean. You can talk football and keep it clean, honestly. I can do it, you can do it. So again, that was an episode of All In with Nate. I will talk to you guys later. Y'all have a good rest of your Friday evening.